All right, Paul.
Hey,
Good
Mike.
afternoon. Great to be here in your studio again.
Yes. It
I
feels
love
like
this place.
we love having you. You got your mug, your Buddha mug.
That's right.
Cheers.
There is. Cheers. There's my Buddha mug. So, we're going to be talking today about your path to social work, including your studies and what's taken you there and what you're foreseeing for the future. So, I got some questions I'd like to ask you, and so you give you a chance to talk about it a little bit.
I'm excited. I appreciate it. You know, this is something I'm very passionate about, and I appreciate you taking the time to have a dialogue with me about it.
My pleasure. Absolutely. So, what got you started? Like, what led you on this path to be interested and feel drawn to social work?
It's a good question. When I think about it, there's so much that's happened, as you know, in my life since going to school for social work at Adelphi. The main thing I think kind of set me on that path was actually overcoming my own learning disability, which I've shared with you. At birth, I was choked by the umbilical cords. The doctors told my parents that I wasn't going to make it. They obviously were devastated. They didn't believe it. Luckily, I'm here.
Sure.
Yeah, and but ever since then, I had to deal with having some minor brain damage. I mean, luckily, it could have been fatal, but I'm here today still, and how it has affected my learning is in certain subjects and certain times in my education, I've needed some extra time, right? Like I've needed to maybe be in smaller classrooms, or I needed extra time on tests, and luckily in the school system, I was privileged enough to have those accommodations given to me, and those are things that I still get luckily at Adelphi. So,
was that something that you were aware as you got those accommodations that there was a social work connection with the social workers involved in that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, it's looking back, it's more clear now because I would actually looking back, a lot of my mentors were social workers.
Really?
And a man named Mr. Bajaj at Northport High School who was a social worker. He ran a lot of different clubs, and he created a lot of opportunity for students to meet up and talk. He was big about bringing people together from all walks of life, like ourselves, and he was somebody that was a huge role model to me. He actually got me involved in this club called Project Tolerance, where we would have, it was one of those clubs where anybody, the popular kids, the jocks, the nerdy kids, anybody can come and get involved. And I remember we would take trips to the VA hospital in Northport right over here and connect with the veterans. And I remember sitting there with the veteran, I think it was like 2009, and it was my first true volunteer experience. And I remember sitting there with the veteran, and we weren't doing anything fancy, we weren't playing any games, watching anything. We were just sitting and talking, and I could see the impact that it was making on his life just by holding space. And it was in that moment that I realized, despite my challenges, despite what challenges you've gone through, we each have the ability to make an impact on someone's life. And that's kind of put me on this path now.
Yeah. So that planted the seed.
Oh yes, definitely planted the seed. And there's been a lot of nurturing to that seed and things that have happened, but that was definitely the first true, I think, experience for me.
So you went through school, high school, and then I understand from what you've shared with me, now you're pursuing this in a quite intentional way. Like you have pretty clear idea of where you're going now.
Definitely.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, going to school for social work was something I think was always there. Like it was always, like I said, the mentors, the things in my life has always led me in the path of social work. But there was a lot of things also that happened before Adelphi that really solidified, like, okay, social work for me. And I think I've shared with you, one of the biggest things was the work with the special needs community and ultimately creating a non-for-profit for the special needs community, where basically we would plan different social outings for young adults of all walks of life, all different types of challenges, where they would basically go into the community and work on their friendships, work on their social skills, build their relationship within the community. And it was such a rewarding experience. It went from being called Paul's Buddy Club to Northport Buddy Club to the Long Island Buddy Club. And it was the funniest thing because from the change from Paul's Buddies to Northport Buddy, I got the biggest pushback. They're like, what? We like that name. And I changed it because it's not about me. It's about the community. But it was a funny thing because all the members and parents like, we like Paul's Buddy Group. And then we changed it to the Long Island Buddy Club because we ultimately, obviously, invited everybody in the island to come to our different outings.
And where is that at today, the Long Island Buddy Club?
That's a good question, and it's been a challenging time during COVID, but the Long Island Buddy Club merged with an amazing organization very similar to the Buddy Club, another grassroots organization that actually has an office and started here in Northport, called Positive Behavioral Support Services Community Foundation. It's a long name. They're looking at changing their name up a little bit.
They were in existence already?
Yes, and we teamed up and did things, but I had to make a tough decision. And your life, as you know, has a lot of tough choices we got to make. When I wanted to go to school for Adelphi, for social work, I knew that I couldn't balance running a non-for-profit, the board meetings, all the things that come along with running an organization. So I had to make the tough decision to merge, and it was the best thing. Because as you know, collaboration over competition.
And do you still have a role or a connection with them?
Yeah, good question. I'm still on the board. I'm on the board
Really?
of PBSCF. Just spoke to the director today, and they are trying to reach different fundraiser goals. So it's an amazing that I can, even though I'm opening a new chapter in my life, I can still be involved and make an impact on the special needs community, and it's been amazing.
So you mentioned Adelphi. Like when you were making a decision about where you were going to go, did you consider options, and what went into your decision really to choose Adelphi?
That's a good question. Actually, my brother went to Adelphi, so I kind of knew firsthand that it was a good school. Even though he doesn't have a learning disability, I could see that it was a good quality school. The education, the buildings, it was clean. It was just like a good school. And I also heard great things about the social work program because I was going to a Suffolk Community College, first for my liberal arts, then to get my KSAC-T, which is a substance abuse counselor trainee. So I was kept hearing about the great program at Adelphi, and when I went to visit, I remember seeing this sign I was telling you. It says, "Where the professors remember your name," or something like that, and it's so true because they really do get to know you and really do form a connection.
My brother went there. He's a social worker. 30 years ago, he worked for the state of New York for about 30 years as heading up programs, and then he retired from the state, and he still has a private practice where he does psychotherapy as a social worker, and he always spoke highly of Adelphi, and I know other people who have gone there too. I always heard good things about it.
No, it's been good, and I'm glad that he had a good experience because I think that all schools right now, as you know, COVID have been really challenged. Not-for-profits, we have been challenged. I think everybody's been really challenged, and this is something that we've never faced before. So, I think I've been open to you about the challenges of the online learning that I've had to deal with at Adelphi, and that's something that we could talk more about, but it's definitely been a challenging experience, I think, for everybody, involved.
It would not be my choice. If I was in school again, which I still could do at some point, for another degree.
Yeah.
The online learning is just, I know people who teach it, and there's a lot to be said for it. I know for some people with their schedules, they're working full time, but not me. I don't see myself doing that. And everybody's different.
Well, it's interesting because you think that you would have more time. You're not doing the commute, and for me, it's a 45-minute commute. But something about being engaged and having that hustle and bustle from going from one class to the next and seeing the professor and face-to-face and engaging and connecting with fellow students and faculty and then staff, there's something about that. And yes, the online learning is good because it's I guess, more convenient for some people. But for someone like me who gets distracted easy. And another big thing, which we could talk about, is how challenging it is to take advantage of your accommodations. Because let's say you got extra time on assignments, extra time on tests, separate location. It's hard to translate those accommodations on online. And that's something that's been very challenging. Very challenging for myself, and I know a lot of other students.
This idea that the professors know your name, can you say some more about that? What your experiences have been with professors there at Adelphi?
Yeah, I gotta say the professors, anywhere from the custodians, the professors to the administration, they're very present. And that's we talk a lot about presence and living in the moment, but they're very good at when you're connecting with them, you're talking to them, they do a good job at making you feel like you matter, or what you say matters, or what you're going through is validated. And I think that's important because a lot of people in schools, they're usually oftentimes in big auditorium, not always, but a lot of classes, they're so busy, there's so much going on, they don't have that same opportunity to build a connection.
Right.
But I think also plays into it that I'm the type of person that within the first week of classes, I either have emailed, spoken on the phone, or I've spent time after, before a class in their office talking to them. And I think growing up with a learning disability, I had to learn at a very young age to advocate for myself. Because I know, okay, I'm going to be struggling with this and this, so I want to make sure that I do everything I can to be prepared. You know, COVID has thrown a wrench in that, so sometimes I got to reevaluate my different techniques and tools of doing things. But it's taught me to really not be afraid to connect and reach out, you know.
So we're now like 8-9 months into COVID, and colleges and high schools and schools all over the country are dealing with it. New York City schools they're open, they're closing. It's just been, you know, a lot of ups and downs. What's it been like at Adelphi? How have they addressed the challenges of COVID over these months?
Well, that's a good question. I think that they've been challenged, and I like to say it's like we're all in this together. That's something I brought up to my professors, and like, you're right, Paul, we all are in this together, and I think they are doing their best. You know, I had the privilege of speaking to the president of Adelphi, who reached out and congratulated me on an article that was done in The Observer, and I was speaking to her, and she's like, listen, you know, we don't know what the future holds in a lot of different ways because there's so much unknown with the virus and the world that we live in. But I have to say the professors, especially with assignments, like, and I'm being very vulnerable here putting this on the air, but there's been times where I've just emailed professors and I was like, listen, like, this is what's going on in my life. I'm not going to have this by tomorrow. And there's just understanding. They know it's not about you slacking off or not caring. It's just that life is heavy right now for a lot of people. People are dealing with personal issues, financial issues, mental health issues, spiritual issues, and I think there's been times where I've spoken to my professors on the phone. I'm like, listen, like, I'm talking about what's going on, and she's like, it seems like you need a mental health day. And you know what they say to me? Sometimes I've had professors say, she's like, I'm thinking about taking off today too because I got a lot going on as well. And there's that, like, remembering that they're human as well. Sure. And they're going to have times where, like, damn, they got families, they got kids, they got things going on in their life. They might need someone to talk to. So there's like this, honestly, going to school right now at Adelphi with this experience has reassured me that I'm meant to be a social worker, if that makes sense. It makes me feel like it reevaluates. It validates my desire to, you know, be a social worker.
What do you envision for yourself within the field of social work in the years to come? How do you see yourself working? What kind of work? What kind of population? How do you see that?
You know what? The field is changing, as you know, and I know you do similar work. The field is changing so much that I think that the field of social work is going to be even more vast, because I think with things becoming so much more over the internet and electronic and teletherapy, I think that the face-to-face, the human interaction is going to be more sought after. People are going to want the human connect, the life coach, the social worker, the therapist, because we're becoming in a world where everything is on apps and on phones. And I think that people like you and I are going to be needed more than ever because people want that. People want that human-to-human interaction and connection. But for me personally, I think at this moment in time, I would love to open my own practice where it's not just therapy, one-on-one work, but offering, you know, like spiritual work, workshops, like little meditation workshop, yoga, different hypnotherapy, you know, a bunch of different modalities that kind of, you know, nutrition workshops. I want to kind of have like a holistic approach and have different people in like yourself and help, because I think that's where the world's heading, a more holistic approach.
I think I could see you also like heading an organization, because you've done that already. Yeah. Like we just talked about. And maybe within that realm of social work, something evolves where it's not just as an individual, but you're in some organization that fits with your vision.
That would be cool. That'd be cool. Now, there's a lot of work with organizations. There's a lot of it's a lot of work, and that could be a possibility. I think for me, I will always be involved in some type of organization because of my desire for. I love volunteer work. I love giving back. That's not relating to being paid or anything like that, but just doing good because you want to do good. And I think another thing I could see myself doing is, as you know, I like speaking. And using my social work degree to help me give talks and be more educated on different subjects. I would love to travel. I think I've told you, go on like a little road trip and travel. Do two things I love: traveling and speaking, which is two things that I really want to do down the road.
Have you done any speaking this year?
I have through Zoom.
Yeah. What kind of topics have you spoken about?
The one thing I want to say is it's interesting because I've been speaking to some inner city schools that they don't have budgets for speakers, but they reach out to me like, listen, we have a group of seniors. This a couple months ago, they're bummed about missing prom, graduation, but they would love for you to come in. And I remember speaking to these young adults, and the topic was overcoming challenges. And we spoke. I asked each of them what are the different challenges they were going through, and by the end of the conversation, they all talked about how they use this time to figure something positive. And what was so cool about that is that's the big theme, is transmuting challenges, having a positive and proactive way to look at different challenges that you're dealing with. And each one of them had things like, one of them talked about how they found their love and interest for medicine during this experience. One of them started their journey of an entrepreneur. They started like a little side business, which is so cool. And each of them had a story of using this time in a positive way. And I think that's so cool because I think that there's a lot of, if you turn on the news, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of negative things going on. So to see these students who took a negative situation to positive, that's what motivates me.
Yeah. I think I remember earlier this year too, you were speaking at an organization we're both familiar with, Thrive, Long Island. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was amazing. That is an organization that I've been volunteering there for a couple of years now, and there's such amazing people there. And I gave a talk on transmuting challenges. And for those who don't know, Thrive is an amazing non-for-profit. They have a location in Hauppauge and Westbury last time I checked. And they really help people from all walks of life, especially those who are dealing with addiction or family members.
Right.
And what's amazing is, even though I've brought clients to there who have never been addicted to drugs, they want people to come to be more educated. So you don't have to have addiction. You don't walk in and say, do you have an addiction, and or have you been addicted? They welcome people from all walks of life. Right. Which I think is really cool. So it was a privilege, giving that talk.
Yeah, they have all kinds of meetings going on there with all the 12-step groups, and they have counselors there. They have people who are coming for services there, who are coming right out of inpatient drug programs, and they have other behavioral addiction situations that they help people with. I volunteer there as well, as I do career counseling. So sometimes people have been in treatment and they got to put their lives back together, and they haven't worked for a couple of years, and we have to craft a resume that shows what they have to offer, and those are some of the challenges. But I think the fact that you have an affinity and and a concern for people who have that kind of struggle is a beautiful thing. That's part of the kind of helping that you want to do.
Thank you. And I got to give you some credit because Mike here has been an amazing coach and friend and just overall human being to me, and I got to give him props because you've really been so supportive of my journey, and obviously even sitting here with me today in your busy day, and I appreciate that. It means a lot to me.
It's my pleasure. It's an honor. So I think we're going to wrap up. Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion? Anything that comes to you, as far as your work, as far as Adelphi, anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share?
I think we did a good job touching a lot of it, and I just have to say that despite my learning challenges, and I think, like I said, Adelphi has a lot of diverse students. I think they've done an amazing job at rolling with the punches during this time, like we all have. It's a very challenging time, and I think that over time, I think next semester they're going to have a handle on things a little bit better. But like I said, someone like me, I struggle with online learning. So I think long term, this may not be a way for students of all walks of life to kind of get their degree. But I think for right now, I'm going to have to push through and get through it. But I do have to say that the professors, the staff, everyone has been really amazing and supportive, and I want to just add that Adelphi is really supportive of what I do outside, through my talks, my podcasts, because that's what I'm all about. My message, and I think we have a similar message, to bring people together from all walks of life. And when I get to have people on the podcast like yourself, my mission is not too different than my mission as a social worker. It's to give people an opportunity to share what they've been through and where they want to go. And it's cool to see how, even though I'm doing a lot of different things, they're all pushing me in the right direction. The one thing I'd like to share, and if you want to share anything at the end of this as well, is that if people are watching this and they're struggling, to keep searching for things that make life worth living. For me, it's connecting with people like Mike, doing these podcasts, going to school for social work, meditating, the work I do at the special needs community. Those are the things in my life that make my life, worth living.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about self-care. It's a fairly hot topic these days that I think more and more people are becoming aware of the importance of caring for themselves. And that's, social work, coaching, it's a lot of it is about providing encouragement and suggestions about how we can take better care of ourselves, because we can take better care of others when we're taking good care of ourselves.
That's a good point. And I'm gonna include Mike's information in the description of this video, because you've been a great help and support of me. And then if anybody's watching this, no matter if you're a social worker, teacher, whoever watching this video, you do a great job at coaching people, whether it's virtually, whether it's in person. You've been a great help to me, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate this conversation. So,
okay, it's been great. All right.
Cheers. Got your Buddha mug.
Cheers. All right.